Well, welcome back, Therapy Flow community. We're excited for more of a mindset chat today about a kind of really a specific growth component that matters a lot. That matters a lot when growing your practice. At the end of the day, there are just certain unavoidable pieces when you want to build something big. When you have a dream in mind and you're working towards something with your practice, and that's going to be kind of time. There are just certain things that take a little bit to mature and to grow. So today we're going to be diving in both kind of existentially and tactically some of the things that you need to be thinking through and be patient with inside of your business in order to let it grow. And we'll dig into it, but patience is often the antidote to pressure. As business owners, as practice owners, there's so much pressure from your team, from your bills, from your goals, internal, external, all of it. And there's only a couple ways to navigate through that pressure as a business owner. So let's dive into that today.
Yeah, if we're looking at like time on a continuum, I might look at like the pre-time portion first. And pre-time is like being prepared for the things that you know will take time. And so things like credentialing, you know, it takes time. And
Yeah.
so maybe you need to get that process started sooner. And then there's patience with the credentialing process as you're taking actions for that process. Hiring, it takes time. Oftentimes, you need to talk to a few people. If you're always hiring the first person that comes to your doorstep, you're probably setting your team up for failure. And so, hiring takes time. And so, when you know things take time, being proactive is maybe one of the most helpful items. Like, do things sooner.
Yeah.
Many of you guys have tried to do marketing and it didn't work. And I think marketing is one of those things that if you're not an expert, which many of you aren't experts, it may take time. Even experts, it takes time sometimes to get it to work exactly right for the exact clinician in an exact area, among other things. So some of these things I think we need to like come into patience with proactivity at the forefront. So it's kind of like when you're driving in your car and you're like, I'm going to drive 5 miles an hour faster to get to my location. If you do the math for locations that are like close by, driving 5 miles an hour doesn't get you there faster. And in fact, one stoplight can erase the total time that driving 5 miles an hour faster will get you there. But on a long drive, driving 5 miles an hour faster will get you there five
Yeah.
miles per hour faster. And so when you break it down kind of like that, it's interesting to see. Like leaving, the time you leave is actually the first indicator of your arrival time or when you may arrive at the destination.
Yeah. The concept that really rings true in my head from Gary Vaynerchuk, a very large marketing professional and author, he talks extensively about micro speed and macro patience. Micro speed and macro patience. There needs to be a cadence of action, a cadence of kind of get her done attitude in the short term. I think it's appropriate to have a little bit of a bite towards the goals that you're working on. But if you don't set your sights out far enough, and if you aren't patient with the long-term sort of results and growth, it's really hard to ever see that. So if we only have micro speed and micro desired results in the day-to-day and the week-to-week moment, you're always going to skip past the opportunities, the quality frameworks, and a lot of other things that will produce long-term success. Two big examples come to mind in this. We've got an incredible consultant that's part of Therapy Flow that was and is a client of ours for more than four plus years now. They've built an incredible group practice, more than a team of 50 plus across their multiple locations and continuing to grow. And it didn't happen overnight. They spent at least 5 years building out the infrastructure and scaling it. an immeasurable amount of activities and investment and pieces to get there, to build a profitable, sustainable business that orients them with some freedom and some other pieces attached with it. But Stephanie was a solo practice for years before that. Pablo, her spouse, who helps her run the business, had a lot of business and entrepreneur experience in real estate and other pieces that he brought to the table. And so for some, that was really fast. For others, that might have felt slow, but either way, it took them minimum at least 5 years plus to reach their goal today. And they had to consistently move through every challenge every single day, but be patient for the long-term result year over year over year.
Yeah, there's kind of this idea that we should all be aligned around is when you're taking actions, you need to create a system for those actions, right? When it comes to a big event, like I want to build a business or I want to grow a business, it's never just like one check mark that you check off. Like today I built my business. There's a million habits, there's a million actions and activities and elements that have to compound on each other for the emergence of a business, a big business being built until you can
Yeah.
finally check that checkbox. So to have that emergence happen, you need to create systems around your actions. The systems around your actions all require feedback loops. Okay. Feedback loops are just you checking in after you did an action to see how well that action went. If many of you guys, I mean, you're all well-educated individuals. I'd say 95% of you guys, have advanced degrees, among other things. You understand the scientific method. And all this is the scientific method. We take a hypothesis, we take action on it, and then at the end, we have some type of conclusion. Either it's good or in your favor or not in your favor to the hypothesis. And then you just continue to go into that loop. Okay. You continue to hypothesize again, take action again, and then verify what happened essentially. And so
Yeah.
you want to take an engineering approach maybe on building your business. And so many of you guys are taking action, checking it off of your checklist, and then forgetting that it ever existed. And that's not how you're going to build sustainability. And that's not how you're going to build in a net positive direction.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to patience, I think that's what we have to have patience on is do the actions, continue to test your hypothesis and continue to verify your claims. And then that's what you need to have patience on.
Yeah. Another core example that's close to home for myself and therapy flow as a business is I run a weekly newsletter. It's been just over 2 years of that newsletter. The very first issue that I sent out, I scraped literally every email and list and piece from any and all sources. There were like family members accidentally on it, people not in the therapy space. Like it was just a hodgepodge, but I was like, I need to launch a newsletter and now's the time to do it. Let's figure it out. And it was about 2,200 people that I sent the first issue out. A good portion of them unsubscribed that first email, totally fair. And it was a really scaled back. It was like one paragraph when I went back and read it. And one of the things that I did when I first launched it is every week I listed like the total number of subscribers and how many new people had joined. And I got a couple emails in those first days asking, hey, why I did it. And one of the big pieces was just to measure progress in the feedback loop, internally and externally. Like, is this growing? Do people find this valuable? So started with 2,200 people minus a bunch of unsubscribes. And I had to show up week over week and essentially water that list with good value, good content, good writing. And it took a big portion. It took me a lot longer to write those emails and build that newsletter than it does today because I've done it several hundred times now across these 2 years. And there's more than 10,000 weekly readers. But there were a couple micro things that happened in the middle. I was getting probably about a 30 to 35% open rate on those emails when I first launched the newsletter. And after a month or two, it actually started to drop to like 25 and then to 20. And it hovered about the 20% range for a number of months. And I was really asking myself, great, why aren't people opening my email? Why don't they want to read this content? And that's a feedback loop that I had to listen to and slowly improve on each and every week. At the beginning of this year, 2024, in order to continue to see the increase of desired open rates, I did a big refresh on it. I take the time to add in more images, add in recaps, actually improved like the length and the tone and the colors and the branding on the newsletter. And now I see typically more than a 50% open rate on most of the emails because people want to expect and value. And there's things that I've learned to iterate on each one of those pieces, not just to grow the list to the volume of readers that it is today, but also to get the content consumption that actually matters to people. And every single email that I sent each week was a micro feedback loop. And you really have to look at actions inside of your business that you can afford as well as be rewarded from consistent action over a long period of time. Be rewarded from consistent action over a long period of time. There's certain things that if you're able to be patient and consistent with will massively reward you in your business. Email nurturing is actually a great example of that in the way I just described.
Yeah, I'll maybe drop in a couple quick examples here. I don't know if I got this topic from someone or if I made it up, but it's this idea that failure has bad breaks. And so if you're experiencing like failure in any sector, it's going to take some time for that process to slow and stop, and then for you to change directions, um, because of how habits typically work. And so something to consider here is if you're not experiencing success, or if you're like, I'm in a position where I need to make some drastic changes, I think we need to have some grace for ourselves during the slowdown process and during the change process. This is like, kind of like changing your diet for the first time, like a really big drastic diet change. It's like some people can go cold turkey, or some people can, light switch zero to 100, and some people can't do that. And so I would just be present and aware of what type of person you are, and just know that you're making progress, as long as you're trying your best to make your progress. And so make your change, and then eventually you'll be at the point where it's just happening regularly and systematically, and maybe it becomes
Yeah.
something that you even enjoy, doing something completely different. I Bill Gates said humans are really really bad at determining what they can do in 1 year, but they usually underestimate what they can do in 10 years. And so I would look at your goals and see what it looks like to, one, think of something bigger. So think of something a lot bigger than where you think you need to go, because usually by the time you get to where you want to go, you're like, oh, this isn't that great. I found out that I have all these other problems now too. And so think of something bigger and put it on a longer time horizon. And not to say that you shouldn't set timelines for your goals that are maybe smaller. I think there's an awesome quote that's like, if you set out to clean your room in a day, it's going to take you a day to clean your room. But if you decide to clean your room in 30 minutes, you're going to clean your room in 30 minutes. And so set some good timelines for yourself so that way you're sprinting and you're taking action, but definitely have this longer vision for yourself, because it's very rare that something happens exactly on time, on schedule. And you don't want to set it to like set a lower bar for yourself. That's
Yeah.
not the reason for it. I think you just need to set it because we're astoundingly bad at figuring out what we can accomplish in 1 year versus 10.
I want to share a couple tactical things inside of your practice right now that we consistently see if a practice owner able to be patient with, it can really help them grow faster, actually. And so it's kind of this counterintuitive response. The more patient that you can be, the more reserved you can be with certain categories of your business, and the longer time horizon for like payout or consistency or result, actually kind of the faster the boat moves a little bit, because you aren't cutting short or stopping short other activities or having shiny objects or some of those pieces. And we could talk about marketing as a whole, sure, but I think specifically search engine optimization and networking, you hear all the time that takes time, that takes time. But I think there's a series of actions, sort of like watering the tree for both community partnerships and networking. I did a newsletter on community partnerships a couple weeks ago, kind of talking about this and the ripple effect of it. And that similar is true for SEO. If you put in the volume of actions for both of those activities and you kind of keep your feet to the fire, the payout month one, not great, if any. Payout month three, maybe some, who knows? Payout year one, okay, maybe you're starting to pick up some steam. The payout year two, incredibly compounding. The payout year four, you probably can feed your business alone from just those two things. And we see that again and again and again. And so just know that those two especially compound. If you can keep the same volume of actions month over month over month over month for years, it has an incredible compounding effect that if you can just be patient to get that result.
Yeah, I think a couple other places that are helpful with patience. This is really counterintuitive. This is really, really, really counterintuitive. Um, but if you need to make money today, don't start a business. So don't start a business if you need to make money today, because there's so many variables in business that it may inhibit your cash collection or cash systems. So this is maybe particular for those of you who haven't started, or for those of you who are small. Starting business requires risk. And with risk, there's gives and there's takes and there's other elements in place.
Yeah.
So I would say tactically, that's something to consider. And it's something that I think it catches you off guard, because everyone maybe paints this like rosy colored picture of like, start a business, it's gonna be your freedom, it's gonna be XYZ, like you're gonna be a solo, you're gonna be kicking some butt. So something to keep in mind there. If you need to make money today, don't start a business. I think that's one element for patience that is maybe helpful that no one tells you about. And I
Yeah.
think another element for patience that no one tells you about is, if this is the first time that you are trying to actually grow your business, meaning you're not just working with referrals, you're now working with strangers, people who don't know you, people outside of your network, it's going to take you some time to learn and understand that pattern, learn and understand how you need to operate under those circumstances. The good news is that other people have done it, and so you can too. The other good news is that once you figure it out, it's pretty much figured out. But it is a big hurdle for many practice owners that they have to overcome. They have to understand the difference between working with referrals and people who know them, people in their network or around their network, and working with people who are not in their network,
Yeah.
or people who are not aware of them or their unique selling propositions or who or how they operate. It can be a stark change, but once it happens, that's when you'll be able to unlock growth, like real growth,
Yeah.
because that's when you grow outside of your network, right? Outside of your comfort zone, outside of
I
your.
think that's some great feedback. I think the last one that we can end on, and I see this in two fragments, is you have to be patient with yourself. You are the business owner, you are building the business, you are growing the business. Often you have not done most of these activities before at the level or at the quality or at the volume or with the people, whatever it is. If you're at the peak of your business right now, you've never gone further than you have right this second. So like you're always in this state of new, always in this state of never done before. And that's tough. You just have to be patient with yourself and give yourself grace and keep pushing forward. But I think that also shows up. There are certain activities Stephanie, who I mentioned, I hear her talk about this often, is that transition from therapist to business owner on an identity level. It's like kind of hard and scary, actually, because if you were a therapist, you were being used to being compensated for the sessions you do. You were being compensated for the hours you put in. When you start to grow a group practice, especially, you're now being compensated for how well you manage people, how well you organize your business, how well you create quality of care through a team instead of your own words in a day-to-day session, how well you navigate HR conflict and build culture, and like all these other things that are sometimes harder to measure than the one single client in front of you when you do a session and you collect the fee or you get the paycheck from your previous employer or whatever it is. That transition from therapist to business owner is a progression that often takes time. And so you have to be patient with yourself there.
Yeah. Guys, best of luck. I know it's hard. A lot of you guys are like me and you're impatient, and the speed demon will have its reckoning with you. But
Yeah,
have a little bit of patience. I promise it's worth it.
definitely. And one last thing, whether it's some of our coaches, myself or Attilio, one of the things that often happens to let you have patience is to know what other practice owners are doing. So you have clear expectations on what is actually possible or sustainable. And then two, have expert help to move things faster when appropriate, tactically to achieve long-term vision. We'd love to help you. Go to mytherapyflow.com, book a call. We're happy to chat more about the growth of your practice and even some direct done for you services to help grow your client load if that's something needed as well. We'll catch you guys next time.